story begins in London, where Mickey Pearson, a wealthy American drug lord who built a massive marijuana empire, walks into a quiet pub. He places his order, puts on some music, and sits down majestically while farming aura. Shortly after he gets served, he calls his wife, Rosalind, to plan a romantic date, but realizes she has some troublesome visitors. Before he can process what's going on, a strange man pulls up behind him, and a gunshot rings out, spilling red juice across the table. Soon after, the story transitions to a new setting. Private investigator Fletcher arrives at the luxurious home of Raymond, Mickey's calm and efficient right-hand man. Fletcher, dressed in his usual flashy clothes and carrying a brown folder, insists he has a story to tell that could destroy everything Mickey has built. He claims he's been hired by a newspaper editor named Big Dave,
and his licorice assortment of tasty mates,
who wants revenge against Mickey after being humiliated by him at a party. Fletcher says he has pieced together the entire operation: names, locations, deals, and murders, and that all this information is worth a fortune. He demands a sum of 20 million pounds to keep it quiet. Confused about the whole deal, Raymond tries to get Fletcher to leave, but Fletcher calls him boring
1,500 quid
and suggests they play a game. In his own idea of a game, he leads Raymond into a cinematic journey, causing him to imagine scenes from his script. Diving into the story, we meet a young version of Mikey. Raymond already knows what Fletcher is driving at, but he lets him have his way. According to Fletcher's account, Mickey Pearson is not an ordinary gangster. He came from a poor background in the United States, but earned a Rhodes Scholarship to Oxford by being really smart. At university, Mickey studied the dark art of horticulture, but never finished his education because he developed a different passion: drug dealing.
The dirty wonderweed to his rich.
He had realized that even the elite had vices, so he decided to take advantage of the whole situation, and he began selling crack to rich students. He had met a variety of people in the business, even some who tried to rip him off. But Mickey used every means possible to get them to put the fries in the bag, even if it meant spraying a little red juice. Over time, he climbed the criminal ladder, forming a discreet network of suppliers, distributors, and growers. Eventually, Mickey got to a crossroad in his life, where he got tired of being in the middle class, so he looked for a way to hit the jackpot and then get out of the game. After a while, he found the perfect customer, a Jewish billionaire cowboy named Matthew Berger. After getting acquainted, Matthew agrees to help Mickey build a cognitive behavioral therapy unit. But something about him still doesn't seem quite right. Mickey can't shake off the feeling that he probably has ulterior motives like Prime Diddy at his peak. Stopping him halfway, Raymond asks just what his boss did to Big Dave to warrant him digging into him this much, and Fletcher tells him about the way Mickey had ignored his handshake right in front of the Huz at a top-class party recently. Turns out Big Dave had gone after one of Mickey's lords and dug up some grave dirt on him. He had then released news about the Lord, who apparently paid men secretly to do Diddy stuff to him, prompting his wife and kids to desert him.
And now it's time to leave.
He had also lost his job in the process, since no one else had the guts to stand up to Big Dave because of the fear of seeing their secret kinks all over the papers. Mickey had snubbed him, and that's exactly what led to Fletcher digging into him. Resuming his story, Fletcher reveals his findings about Mickey's magical farm. He explains that since it would be too risky to leave the farm out in plain sight, he had to hide it beneath large country estates owned by aristocrats who have fallen on hard times. In exchange for secrecy, Mickey pays them handsomely to lease their land, using it to cultivate his product underground. The setup is both efficient and nearly invisible to law enforcement. However, Mickey has grown tired of the business, and now wants to sell it while he's still on top. He arranges a meeting with Matthew, who has legitimate business operations, but isn't above shady dealings. Mickey offers to sell his entire empire for $400 million, explaining that the weed market will soon open up legally, making his business even more valuable. While Matthew pretends to consider the fair deal, he secretly plots to get it for much less. He takes Matthew through a secret passage beneath an old crate hidden in the middle of nowhere, and Matthew is beyond astonished at what he sees, realizing that the business would eventually skyrocket and end up bringing revenues of about $500 million. Matthew asks why exactly Mickey is trying to sell it. Mickey then replies that he has risen to the top the hard way and developed quite a reputation for himself. Now he's tired and wants to get his hands clean. Matthew still gets greedy and asks for Mickey's business connections, but he tells him to chill and wire his money first.
Another beautiful feral beast.
Meanwhile, another figure enters the picture, Dry Eye, a young and overconfident Chinese gangster working under Lord George, a powerful crime boss who deals in heroin. Mickey's wife, Rosalind, is also brought into the picture by Fletcher, who glazes her so badly it becomes obvious that he would be her #1 subscriber if she had an OnlyFans. One day, Mickey pays a visit to Rosalind, who manages a car factory, to discuss how the business deal went with Matthew. Before he leaves, he suggests that they get freaky, and Rosalind agrees. But when she checks with his little man and notices he's too excited, she postpones the cracking session.
I find you very impatient, Raymond.
Raymond, bored, excuses himself from the conversation to get a drink. When he opens his freezer, we are shown a dead body chilling, while he casually selects his drink. He then returns to join Fletcher, who goes on with his yapping. Fletcher reveals that Dry Eye had approached Mickey with an unsolicited offer to buy his empire, but Mickey got disrespected by the little amount he offered, so he shot him in the nuts. Raymond then cuts in, stating that his narrative is a lot different from what really happened. Mickey had politely declined Dry Eye's offer, and told him he didn't mix with that kind of business anymore. However, Dry Eye felt disrespected, and decided to act independently to seize control of Mickey's operation. Diving back into the plot, at one of Mickey's underground farms, a group of young YouTube fighters calling themselves the Toddlers, who train under a local gym instructor known as Coach, break in and record themselves stealing marijuana. They upload the footage online as a rap-style fight video as they beat up the gangsters who try to stop them, unaware of who owns the place. The clip goes viral, creating public buzz and drawing unwanted attention to the operation. Mickey is furious when he sees it, so he orders Raymond to track down whoever was responsible.
Who would be bold enough to make the film?
Not too long after, Matthew meets up with Mickey and gives him a golden gun, just for the sake of it. Mickey and his men continue investigating the incident with the Toddlers, determined to find out who exactly is involved. While working on that, they get called to another urgent matter involving one of Mickey's aristocratic partners. The man's daughter, a young woman from a wealthy family, has run off and gotten involved with a group of junkies who supply her with drugs. Raymond, upon hearing this, expresses reluctance, explaining that the location is outside their jurisdiction and that it might attract unnecessary attention. However, Mickey insists that they handle it discreetly, as the partner's influence is valuable to their business. He puts Raymond fully in charge of the rescue, instructing him to bring the girl back safely and to avoid drawing police interest. When Raymond and his team arrive at the rundown apartment complex, they immediately sense trouble. A group of drug users loiters around the entrance, trying to intimidate them, but Raymond and his men push through without hesitation. Inside, they find the missing girl in poor condition, surrounded by junkies who clearly don't want to give her up. Raymond keeps his composure and orders the girl to get up so they can leave, and trying to block the way, but Raymond's crew does their best to maintain control and force their way out. However, just as they begin to leave, the junkies attack one of Raymond's men, and chaos erupts. In the struggle, one of the junkies gets shoved toward an open window. He loses his balance, falls several stories, and dies instantly upon hitting the ground. The entire room falls silent for a moment as the reality sinks in. The accidental death now poses a serious threat to Mickey's entire organization, as any trace linking them to the scene could expose their operation. Thinking quickly, Raymond orders his men to clean up before anyone notices, but it's already too late as several junkies nearby have snapped photos of the body with their phones. Realizing how bad this could get, Raymond orders his men to chase them down immediately before the photos spread. He personally tracks one of the boys through the back streets and corners him. The junkies start yelling. Raymond tries to resolve it peacefully at first, offering to buy the phone with a generous amount of cash. The boy pretends to agree, but moments later, his friends appear, surrounding Raymond and trying to extort him. The situation turns tense, and Raymond quickly realizes he's being set up. Without hesitation, he pulls out his Glock and levels it at them, making it clear he's not someone to play with. The group then panics, and he manages to retrieve the phone successfully. Meanwhile, the rest of his crew rounds up the other kids and confiscates their phones, deleting every trace of evidence. Once the cleanup is complete, Raymond returns to the flat, ensuring the area looks untouched. They then remove the body and dispose of it quietly, eliminating any connection to the incident. Later, it's revealed that Raymond stored the body in a freezer temporarily, which explains why it appeared there earlier in the story when Fletcher mentioned it during his investigation. Fletcher reveals that, during his investigation, he followed Raymond and Mickey's men, taking photos, collecting information, and mapping out connections. He had also been at the scene and had secretly taken pictures as well. Fletcher gleefully recounts all this to Raymond, enjoying how much he knows. He even hands Raymond a photograph of the dead junkie, proving he has evidence that could bring down Mickey's empire if leaked. Fletcher then excuses himself for a bathroom break, and Raymond makes him take off his shoes and leave them by the door before going.
Yes, Mummy.
On his way back, he randomly walks into two of Raymond's men, moving the body to a different location, but he plays it cool. After a while of searching, Raymond finally finds Coach, who's equally furious with his boys for acting without permission. Coach, wanting to fix things, offers to help recover the stolen drugs and smooth things over, but Raymond demands to know how they got the address in the first place, as stuff like that isn't common knowledge. Coach, who had already done his investigation, shows him that he has abducted the strange boy who hired his men in the first place. While they interrogate him, the boy, who proves to be asthmatic, requests his inhaler. But the moment they respond to his demands, he bolts off and jumps off the cliff, unaliving himself. Since they have no leads, Mickey assumes that Dry Eye was the one behind the attack, so he decides to pay George, his boss, a visit along with Raymond. When they get there, Mickey makes it clear that he had not come to play, as he laces George's drink with a deadly laxative and threatens to unalive him if he disrespects him again. Little did he know, Dry Eye had acted on its own. When they leave, George begins to realize that Dry Eye has been acting without authorization. He calls him in and reprimands him for overstepping boundaries, reminding him that Mickey is not an enemy they can afford to provoke. Dry Eye, however, is too ambitious to listen and starts plotting his next move. He unalives his boss on the spot and takes a piss on his corpse. Matthew meets with Dry Eye secretly later, and they form a partnership, intending to destabilize Mickey's business, lower its perceived value, and then acquire it cheaply. Matthew still pretends to be on Mickey's side, while secretly funding the chaos. Shortly after, we're taken back to the opening scene, where Mickey tries to organize a date with his wife. When the op pulls up behind him and tries to unalive him, Raymond quickly shows up and spills his juice, protecting his boss. Sensing something off, Mickey immediately rushes off to check up on his wife. Rosalind, on the other hand, is approached by Dry Eye and some of his men, who suddenly storm into her office. He tries to rizz her up, telling her he's twice the man her husband is, but she turns him down immediately. Meanwhile, Mickey and Raymond get into a terrible accident on their way to Rosalind, confirming that something unusual is definitely going on. Regardless, they do not stop, as they charge towards the building. When Dry Eye changes to threats, Rosalind, who is armed, shoots 2 of his goons down before running out of bullets. Dry Eye then swoops in and grabs her, slamming her on the table while trying to take off her plot armor. Mickey bursts in at that exact moment, witnessing Dry Eye trying to crack his wife. He then goes into a rage and unalives him instantly before he gets the chance to hit.
You're on a figment of your imagination.
Meanwhile, Fletcher wraps up his long story at Raymond's house. He finishes his pitch, smugly stating that the manuscript he's written could easily become a hit movie, and that he expects to be paid to keep quiet. He explains that if anything happens to him, Big Dave won't hesitate to blow Mickey's cover as he slowly takes his leave. When he leaves, Raymond quickly contacts Coach, informing him to keep an eye on Big Dave. Meanwhile, while Big Dave heads home from work, he gets abducted by some of Coach's fighters, who intimidate his bodyguards. With Dry Eye dead and the truth about the betrayal clear, Mickey turns his attention to Matthew. He sets up a meeting and confronts him calmly.
I like you, Michael.
Explaining that he knows everything: the sabotage, the leaked farm videos, and the partnership with Dry Eye. Mickey tells Matthew that he underestimated him, and that every move he made was anticipated. Showing him Dry Eye's dead body in a freezer, Matthew tries to deny it.
I don't have relationships with dead.
But Mickey then pulls out evidence of him paying him off to end him. Mickey reveals that, where he crossed the line, was laying hands on his wife, since no one is allowed to do that. He then informs him that the sale price has changed. Instead of $400 million, Matthew will now pay $270 million, and Mickey will still be the one controlling the entire distribution network. Essentially, Berger will be working for him. Berger, terrified, has no choice but to agree. When Fletcher returns to Raymond's house after the ultimatum he gave for his payment, Raymond, however, reveals that he has been ahead of him the entire time. He reveals that he knows Fletcher has been under surveillance, and that the toddlers, whom Fletcher thought were just delinquents, have been tracking him. Apparently, they had also found a lot of dirt on him, rendering his threats useless. Raymond confiscates Fletcher's evidence, including photos and recordings, and warns him to stay away from Mickey's business forever. Raymond then reveals that both he and Mickey are not safe, because the family of the junkie they unalived is currently seeking revenge. A group of armed men then shows up at Raymond's house, but Coach, who is still trying to make up for what his boys did to Mickey, takes them out efficiently. Meanwhile, Fletcher uses the commotion to escape. Mickey, shortly abducted by some men, realizes he's cooked. While one of the men aims a gun at him, the toddlers show up and gun them down, rescuing him. A couple of days later, Fletcher, still trying to profit from the chaos, visits a Hollywood production company to pitch his movie based on the events he witnessed. He tries to sell it under the title Bush, which refers to the marijuana empire, but the producer doesn't seem entirely convinced. On his way back home, he gets crossed by Raymond, who abducts him. Later, after the chaos dies down, Rosalind gets drunk and makes Mikey do the kind of stuff that'll get her pregnant. The end. Thank you for sticking to the end of my video. Please do me the biggest favor by leaving a like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next video.